officers of all major agencies. It was the first time that the acquisition officers had ever been addressed by a secretary of a cabinet level agency, and it was also the first time that they got the message that this is important around everybody, and I think you will coming out that.
Can I reiterate that point? I think one of the major challenges that I know we have in DoD are that a lot of this seems to be driven, unfortunately, out of the sustainability, the environmental types, that side of the house, as opposed to from the procurement side. They're not as active as I would hope they could be. And so something like that, at the senior official level, at OMB, or all the way down, to come to the procurement chain to help make them more aware of the requirements and of the need, as opposed to trying to have to meet. In my mind, in the environmental sector, developing the DoD instruction for procurement. But I am, because no one procurement people really aren't, so yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Troy Morrison, Panelists Association. This is Scott. Scott, you said earlier that you had 12 products that had biopreferred label, which is about 40% of the sales, but you're selling intermediates. So you're, in the whole program, the label, the downstream product really not in place yet. So how, or A, I guess I'm kind of curious how you get those labels from biopreferred at this point, and then B, how do you get that growth without the government support of downstream products?
Yeah, I think the key to the growth has been our first focus was performance, and this meant a market need, and it just happened to be that soybeans what made it work. So biorenewability is associated with it. So now, we've been selling not green, we've been selling performance. But now that we're aware of this program, we're trying to get this out there and educate our customers. And by the way, not only does it give you the performance that you need, it also has the sustainability to it now. You don't have to buy the bio-based or any non-bio-based product. So it was a very easy process. That's one thing that's real easy to do is get your product qualified. And we've been amazed how easy that is. I think it's $595, and it's just paperwork instead of sample, and it comes back real quickly when you meet the 25% minimum of bio-based content. So the process is very easy. The label has some guidelines on how to use it. We follow those. We've got flyers that we put out educating our customers who are coatings manufacturers about this process, and we actually have one of those guys here today with us. And our product is selling, but it's just not selling in the government right now. So we're trying to figure out how we can take our technology to our customers and put this as part of the program. We see it's a good fit.
Just to clarify, I think there was some confusion with respect to intermediates. When we put our labeling program into effect 3 years ago, on that day, all intermediates that had the appropriate bio-based content were eligible to get our label. The putting those compounds into the federal procurement program is something that will be happening going forward. And the reason that that's a little more complicated is that the government, as you well know, doesn't buy intermediates because we're not in the business of manufacturing products generally. And so the purpose of designating those intermediates is that it would automatically designate the downstream products that are made substantially from those intermediates. That's a little bit more complicated process, and that's something that took us a little longer to figure out. We're still in the process of figuring that out. So the labeling doesn't require looking downstream. The benefits are downstream, but the actual process is just for the product itself.
Thank you for that clarification.
I work with CoStar in the acquisition policy shop, and my question relates to Farm Bill 23, which indicates that bio-based acquisitions applies to all transactions regardless of the dollar amount. So that includes credit card transactions, transactions over the purchase threshold. I'm familiar with two clauses that relate to bio-based. They would not be incorporated into a credit card transaction. What exactly needs to be done from that perspective, from an acquisition process perspective, purchase bio-based? Is it just sufficient to buy it on the USDA website or on GSA Advantage, and that vendor has the green label, is that sufficient? Or if the vendor is not on those websites, does the credit card holder have to go to the extra step of getting certification on that vendor? And also if that vendor is not in SAM and registered for biobased certification. So kind of what is the acquisition requirements for procurements under 150,000 for credit card purchases under 3?
That's an excellent question. I think it's all a lot of guys who want to like purchase threshold. Any sale numbers want to take a shot at that?
Well, I think for micro purchases, you don't really need to do the certification. I mean, it's been designated by USDA as one of the preferred products.
Right.
And you know it's on there and you buy it, you can count it.
Right, but and so what if the vendor is not certified by USDA? What does the card holder need to do to ensure that that vendor has?
So you're saying it's a bio-based product that's not been designated for mandatory purchase of biodocument. Are there any others?
The only reason I bring this up is because there's a lot of credit card transactions, 500,000 a year, so, and small purchases. So that is a huge part of our buying power of house. So I just need to understand what are the requirements for bio-based acquisitions in that.
Well, for under the current, we're only counting the ones that are designated. However, we are expanding, I mean, under sustainability, it's a much broader category, and I think you can count it as a sustainable acquisition, under the sustainable acquisition threshold as a product. But I'm not sure what you need to do to certify those, if you need to certify and how to do that. We have been discussing that on a broader basis. For all sustainable products that are broader than the ones that the federal government designates.
Okay, so under 150,000, where certification is not required, is that basically what you're saying?
I think
Is that
so, yes.
threshold?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir?
My name is Charlie Ackerman. I work with the Excel Corporation in their manufacture of paints and coatings. My question goes out to any of the panelist members on how to marry up any product, any commercially available product, to a preferred product list. I think I just heard a reference that if you have a USDA label on it, it is a bio-preferred product. And if it's a bio-preferred product, on the procurement issue with the government, if they are looking to buy a particular product, does that become a preferred product in that acquisition?
I just want to make a clarification. The BioPreferred program, there's two tracks of the BioPreferred program. There are product category designations in the BioPreferred area, which if you have a product like a cleaners, for example, and we establish a minimum bio-based content, if your product meets that minimum bio-based content, you are in. There's also the federal labeling program, which is a more formal certification process where the products are tested to make sure that they meet the bio-preferred, minimums, contents. And then those products actually would get a label, the USDA bio-preferred label. But whether you have a label or not, you can still register on the catalog as a bio-preferred product as long as your product meets that minimum bio-based content. Did I get that right, Ron?
But from a procurement point of view, if you are looking to purchase one of those products, those cleaning products, do they then become a preferred product for you to buy?
Yes. If they're on a designated list, yes. Whether or not they have the label, they still are a bio-preferred product.
Even if you're the only one that produces that innovative technology?
If it's on a designated product category, yes. Yeah, I'm not aware of any that just has one, but if you did, that would be yes, yes.
Oh yeah, there's some categories that only have one vendor listed under the preference program.
Yes, Jeff?
This brings up an interesting disconnect. Our assessment of the marketplace, the number of bio-based products that fall under our 97 designated categories is much larger than the number of products that are actually in our catalog. The ability to get to the catalog is government perspective, we would like 100% of those products that fall into our designated categories to participate and be part of our catalog. And I would just make a brief commercial to the people here, that if you make a designated product and you're interested in having the federal government buy it, we increase your chances by registering for our catalog.
Absolutely. Yes, sir?
I'm an academic, so this question is, I've been working with the industry, I work with the Procurement program. When I come to meetings like this, I'm all excited. I think there's great push on the part of the federal government to procure products. When I look at the great work being done, there's a big disconnect. I go to industry, and the big ones who are not even here, they don't even come to the federal government because they said there's nothing sold. And if you look at the total volume of bio-based products in the market, it's more being sold outside of the government than within the government structure. And there's something missing here. It should be exactly the opposite. And if you go to Europe or even to Asia, the governmental or the regulatory procurement which they have far exceeds what we do here, although they have started, they are simply copying the USDA environmental program. So I'm curious, especially with the people with the federal governments, why do you think there's a disconnect, or what can you do to change that?
I don't know exactly why there's a disconnect.
Especially DOD is.
I don't know exactly why there's that big of a disconnect. I know we buy a lot of the commercial products. So a lot of what we're talking about in the bio-based program, well, first of all, weapon systems and platform drones. We've got that national security exemption. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going in that direction. It may not be in the bio-preferred program, the Navy's already going with biofuels. There was just something that was put out yesterday, the day before, by the Secretary of the Navy. They have a goal of 50% by 2030. But anyway, so there's that. We're using bio-based products in submarines, maintaining some of our submarines, distributing some of the coatings of submarines. We're using bio-based products in other activities related to weapon systems and platforms, even though they're technically exempt. The majority of what we're talking about, frankly, are off-the-shelf available products that we use day-to-day in our installation, in our buildings, and a lot of those are commercially available, and the stores that the installation folks would buy it from need to stock with the appropriate products. So I'm not sure how you account for that necessarily. The other probably challenge is that there's these federal acquisition regulations that industry doesn't have to follow, that the federal government does. And so, like someone mentioned, bio-based is just one of those hundreds of regulations that a procurement officer official has to consider. And if there is a disconnect between Buy American and bio-based, what do you do? How do you answer that? I mean, we were turned away on trying to buy textiles for linens and things to go in some of the lodges, Navy lodges, because there's an amendment that goes back to World War II. I think it was the Berry Amendment. You have to buy textiles manufactured 100% of all products that go into that or go into that those textiles have to be made in America. And I think there's eucalyptus that was coming from somewhere outside the United States. And so the contracting officer looks at that requirement and says, oh, we can't buy it because the Berry Amendments go back to World War II. So that's part of the challenge.
I think that's exactly the problem, because you speak of the bio-based level, they're all good. And then when you drill down to the specifics in procurement, it falls apart. And that's where sometimes companies find it difficult to sell the technical.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm starting. But I also think that if companies, and you supply to larger companies that we might be buying from, and they're made aware, because I think on the telecom we had the other day, some of the larger companies that are getting some of this, bio-based constituents as part of the end product don't even know that, and aren't even marketing as such. And yet we're getting it, or maybe could be getting it, and they don't know that. So I think there's an internal industry discussion that needs to also be more private.
I was going to say, from an industry standpoint, it's about picking your fights. The government is a huge carrot out there that they think is the biggest buyer from America. So wouldn't it be cool to sell to the government? However, on the flip side, are you set up to market to the government? Are you set up to call the government? The acquisition requirements, GSA, in essence, just a matter of picking your fights. Are you equipped to spend time and resources targeting that stuff?
Hopefully that helps. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. In the days when we actually had GSA expos and we would go, and we're still running avenues, there seemed to be a number of groups that were formed to try to bring together companies to help agencies find a product. So other than GSA and DLA, there seem to be these third-party groups out there. There were a number of them that would come and exhibit and say, we can do some of this match making on contracts and products, and they were looking to get manufacturers to sort of sign up so they could say, we have a portfolio of people. And they seem to be managing contracts in discrete areas, some in the interior, maybe some in DOD. Is there growth in these kinds of companies? Is that an avenue to help buyers and sellers get together? They seem to have contracts with federal agencies to manage some of their contracts.
I think that's a good question, and I like the idea that was brought up earlier about having some kind of a coalition or federal government, and I think that's, but you're exactly right, you're hitting on, I think, what the fundamental question is, how do you match these people up? And they could be, I mean, USDA is very large, we have 100,000 employees, how do you know who's buying equipment? Did you have something to add?
I mean, I'm not all that familiar with it, but I understand there's this Procurement Technical Assistance Center that each state has, and that's a federal program that's kind of trying to do that, I believe, bring the buyers and sellers together. So there are, I think, avenues out there. We just need to explore them.
I'm not aware of what you were referring to, but lately we have been holding Green Dove forums on a variety of topics on challenges and areas of sustainability where we want to have more dialogue both with government, bringing all of government together and also with industry. So if you think this is a good area, I'd be happy to promote that and get back on.
One more question, and I think we're out of time. Yes, Linda?
I think the Green Dove, White House Green Dove dialogue on biobased would be very, very exciting and interesting for both industry and federal government. There's been one here, and I think that really helped promote dialogue, communications, and better action items. So one, I thoroughly Dave is absolutely right about the pretext. Why I prefer to have them as partners with the pretext. There's been satellite screening in 2012 where businesses were invited through to listen to pretext, small business administration representatives, and the Department of Commerce manufacturing extension programs. So, and on the website, that streamlined video for industry and government people is available for free. So if you're a company that wants to learn about working with pretext that they recommended all across the country with SDA or the Manufacturing Extension Program, you can go to www.bioport.gov under training and see all those free satellite streaming videos.
Okay, Dr., one thing to say, and then we'll wrap it up there.
And I'll be brief. Sitting here today in my role from industry and listening to all these folks talking about the options, the solutions, the contacts, the different addresses and things, I think for industry, it would be really great if we have a list of some things and what this agency does, just something brief. Then as we go into the cutting policies, someone who has not been exposed to this, you can hand this cheat sheet and say, if you encounter any problems, here's some different agencies which can help.
Great idea. So thanks for the wonderful questions, and we please give our audience, our panel a round of applause.